Building relationships is critical for reliable fundraising revenue. It used to be the case that 80% of the money given away in the US to charities came from about 20% of the people and vice versa. So you have the bottom 80% giving 20% of the total money, and then you have the top 20%, the top 20 wealthiest, most generous, giving 80% of the money. We're now past this. We're now closer to like 90-10. So almost all the money, 90% of the money is coming from the top 10% of donors. Even crazier, 50% of the money comes from 2% of the donors. Let me show you what that looks like. So if here's the pie of all the money, about 10%, that's about 10%, about 10% of the money, this is 90% of donors, or 90% of people who give to charity. Everything else in this shaded area, all of the rest of the pie, this is all 10%. Just 10% of the donors give away all of this money. Even more so, this 50% right here, this half, that's only 2% of the donors. If we just approach the top 2% of the donors, we'd have access to over half, or right at half, of the philanthropic pie in the US. Now, rather than trying to be sad about this, we're just saying, okay, great, well, we're just gonna focus on targeting the top 2%, or at least the top 10% to get almost all of the way there. If we try to target these portions equally and we spend equal effort in each of those areas, we're gonna be way undervaluing and way hurting our bottom line in terms of what our revenue could be. Now, the main difference between how we pipeline and look for that 90% versus that top 10%, these tend to be transactional and these tend to be relational. So this 10% right here, the 10% of people that are more relationship-based fundraising is absolutely critical. It's almost all the money and it's almost all the bottom line for most charities. So we really need to intentionally focus more and more, now more than ever, on this relational piece of fundraising. Now, it's 2025 right now. We can look back at the numbers from 2024, and we've noticed that the total dollars, just like in years past, have gone up and up and up. So in 2024, the number of dollars given away, the money itself, has gone up. More money was given away in 24 than in 23, than in 22. We broke records for how much money is given away. Maybe for inflation it's a little bit down, but for the most part, really in terms of a dollar record, 2024 was it. We expect 2025 to be largely the same way. But if you look at the total number of donors, the total number of people who've given, we've kind of seen this, where it's fallen off a little bit. The number of people, this is the number of people, has diminished. It's gone down. We have a little bit less in 24 than we did in 23, less total people giving away money. So how is this possible? How is more money given away from less people? Well, it's just the same thing. It's going back to those 10%ers. Those 10%ers are giving even more money away. And the 90%ers, that middle class giving, that transactional type giving, that's down. So again, not only is it crucial to focus on this 10%, but it's increasing ever more every single year. And we really, really have to focus on how do we target and correctly pipeline for that 10%. And of course, the answer is relationships. Now, we have this perception that it's easier than ever to target people for gifts. With the technology that we have right now, especially with the internet, with the age of AI, all of these tools that we have, we can target lots of people. We can do the one-to-many type fundraising very, very easily. So maybe it is the case that we can bring someone in a transactional way. We post an ad on Instagram about something that we're doing. Someone clicks on that ad, it takes them to their website, they watch a video or they read a little bit about what we do. That drives them to the donation page. From the donation page, they give $25 or $100 toward the cause. And we go, we did it. We only spent $4 on that click through on the ad and we got $100. So even with the setup, we profited at least $90 from that one. We're so excited. Now, if we can just multiply that times 1,000 or 10,000, it'll be so easy. And for larger nonprofits with a lot of brand equity, that might be the case. They might be doing it. American Red Cross, United Way, American Cancer Society, they're gonna have those lower donations. Their donations are gonna be averaging in the low $20-ish compared to maybe some smaller community nonprofits that have to average higher donation sizes because they don't have the big brands behind it. They don't have the big websites. They don't have as much traffic. Because of all these new tools and technology, it is easier than ever to safely sit behind your desk and try to fundraise. Like, I have all these options for funding, and so many of them, I don't have to go talk to people, and I love that. I love the fact that I don't have to put myself out there, I don't have to take risks, I can just sit safely and anonymously behind my computer and do stuff, and some amount of money will come in. And it's true, some amount of money will come in, but for your time, there's nothing close in terms of ROI, the return on your investment on your time, than going out and actually talking to people and forming these relationships. Again, the people that we're targeting, these transactional type relationships, that 90% falling off more and more, and the total money they're giving away, less and less and less. That middle class giving falling out might have to do with the economy, with inflation, with perceptions of nonprofits, who knows? But it doesn't really matter why it is true that it is happening, so we're just gonna go then focus and double down on that top 10%, because that's where the money is. We wanna make sure that at the end of the day, our job is to fund our missions, and we have to identify where the money is to do that, and it's those top 10%. The same thing if you were running a business, and 10% of your customers were 90% of your income. You would want to spend an inordinate amount of time making sure those 10% are super happy with your product or service, and then spend a little bit of time on the other 90%. You really want to focus on those key customers, or in our case, our key donors, to make sure that these are very relationship-based and not so transactional. How do you do that? Well, if there's nothing else you do, you got to get out of your office. And if you don't like getting out of your office and talking to people, then I have bad news, is that this is basically the only way we're gonna be able to get it done, becoming increasingly so. You gotta go talk to people. It doesn't always have to be to ask for money, but we do need to be constantly setting up cultivation and stewardship meetings, as in meetings that we're just talking about our program, we're getting to know the donor, we're asking them questions, we're building a relationship, and we're not just sitting behind our desk either online or sending emails or calling sponsors from the phone and trying to get money for our events. But we need to get out of the office and actually go talk to people. The top performing fundraisers that we have in our portfolio are the ones that spend 80+% of their time outside of the office actually talking to people, a lot of times asking for money, a lot of times just maintaining and building those relationships. Hey, thanks for checking out our video. If you're getting value out of this but would like something more personalized, you can book 30 minutes with one of our experts to see if you qualify for our support services. Link below in the description. Now, the one key mistake that I see people make is that, say, you have and you work for your organization, right? And you have all these donors, and you're like, great, relationship fundraising. I'm super sold on this. This is you. Let's say you. And then this is your org. You work super hard. You're like, I'm gonna be a great fundraiser. I'm gonna start making connections. I'm gonna meet these people. And through meeting these people, they'll be able to introduce me to more people. And I build my own network, and they all love me. I'm awesome, and they should love me, but through their connections, I'm getting connections to this. Well, your job, hopefully, is to fund your organization, so then you say, well, here's the awesome stuff that we have. But if you get a new job, or you're no longer able to work, or something happens to you, all these donors who you think had a great relationship with giving to your organization actually just had that relationship with you. And this is good, we do want to form relationships, but in an ideal world, it's not just the relationship that the donor has with you as the fundraiser. Instead, we're trying to build these connections, these direct to the organization connections. So we have these wonderful bridges, and you're just the facilitator. All you are the connection, you help facilitate that connection. You send information back and forth along this line. Here's what we're doing. Here's what you can fund. Here's what we're doing. Here's what you can fund. And you're just the facilitator, so that if you get replaced by someone else, that connection still remains strong. So yes, it's great to pull these connections and you want to know these people on a personal level, but hopefully you're taking good notes, you're sharing that in your CRM, and you're really connecting them to the opportunity. Even better, bonus tip, connect them to each other. One of the things donors want most is fellowship. They want to connect with other people who love the same things that they love, that support the same things that they support. So you want to kind of build this network. And again, don't think about yourself as a piece in this network, a connection across the way, but you want to build these connections with each other and then build the connection with your organization. So if you're struggling to kind of make progress on this, instead of think, why would they want to talk to me? Ask the question, why would they want to support this organization? Who do they know who might want to get involved? Who do we already have involved that they might want to know? You can kind of facilitate these, and if you can build this network around the cause, whether you're involved or not, they have that That's what relationship fundraising means, is to connect it to that org directly. So your job as the fundraiser is to build that into your daily system, your daily work. So what does that connection actually look like? A couple things. When I say connection, that's kind of abstract, right? So let's put some concrete terms to it. Number one is impact. Impact is super simple. It is they gave money, something happened, you tell them about the thing that happened. All it is. Hey, here's a story about someone that you've helped. Hey, here's volume of people that you've helped, or a number or a percentage that's gone up. Here's an outcome. And you're just sharing these things back with the donor. What a donor really wants when they give to an organization is just to be part of something. The closer they can feel to the frontline part of that mission, the more connection, the more impact, the better relationship that you have. It also breeds a lot of trust. We talk about trust as an important piece of connection. And they're gonna have more trust if you're just constantly communicating with them. The other thing is, a lot of charities make the mistake of say this is a calendar year, right? This is January to January. And then they ask for money here. And then they don't talk to the donor. And then they send them something in the mail here, and another ask. And then they invite them to an event here. And then they say, can you sponsor a thing here? And they send them a year-end appeal here. And they've asked 5, 6 times, all for small amounts. But not once have they said thank you or shared impact back, or maybe they do it once. Maybe they have an impact report or an annual report that comes out in the summer. But this ratio of asking versus giving is terrible. Most of the time when you're interfacing with the donor, and this is something that charities really mess up in a year, you're just with your hand out. Now your job is to raise money, that's fine, but doing it this often where you have over and over and over and ask, but not impact, really not the best way to do it. What we want instead, and I'm sure you can probably guess what I'm getting at here, is you make one ask at the beginning of the year, and then once they give, you share an impact, and then you invite them to a thank you event, and then you call them and say thank you, and then you write them a handwritten note, and then a board member calls them, and then you share impact again. And you get them used to when you contact them, it's just to say thank you, or it's just to tell them how awesome they are, or to share a story, or to share some sort of something. So this impact piece is huge. So by the time that you get back to the next January and you ask them again, they're so used to hearing from you, and it's such a positive association that they're really excited to give again. We can even extend this out over larger time frames. If they're paying on a multi-year pledge, you can make one ask and then do this for multiple years and then go ask them again for the first time. So you're almost training them in like a Pavlovian way to be really excited to hear from you. So when you finally make that, hey, will you renew or will you upgrade your giving? They're like, yes, absolutely. I would love to do that because I understand the impact. I understand where you're spending my money and I see the kind of good that I'm doing with your organization. The other piece is asking lots of questions. We're just gonna say asking cues, which is learning about the donor. The great example I try to always give with this is if you're trying to form a connection romantically with a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, and all of that connection is just you sharing information about you and you never ask anything about them, how strong do you feel like that connection's going to be? Obviously, it's probably going to fizzle out. You may have been part of these types of relationships and had a direct experience with this. The same goes with relationships with donors. If we're only sharing information from the charity to the donor, and this is all we do, we send information this way. And we're so excited because, oh, he told me to communicate impacts. I'm just going to forever barrage. And then occasionally I'll make an ask. I'll throw an ask here, every once in a while. But for the most part, I'm just sending information to the donor. This might be a strong stewardship piece to get them to understand why they give, and maybe they like that. But if you're not getting information back the other way occasionally, and now 50-50 might be a lot to ask, but if we're not sending information back the other way, what are the donors' preferences? What kind of philanthropic impact do they want to have? What do they hope happens every time they give? What types of projects do they want to support in the future? Why do they make their first gift? You can ask any of these questions directly. You literally just ask them. And the more you can build that way, the more they feel like they're part of the conversation. And we're sending information both ways. And again, because it's with the organization, we want to capture this information in a CRM of some kind. We want to know what their birthday is, their gift anniversary. We have lots of videos on how to do this well. But just focusing on asking questions and sending lots of information both ways. That's what relationship building is. And it's harder to do when we feel like we have this kind of parasocial relationship in the way that an influencer would have with fans or something, but we really can do a nice job, not with all of our donors. If we can't get them all because we have too many, great problem to have. Start with your top 10. Move to your top 25 or your top 50 and try to just, your VIPs, try to increase. And you don't have to interact with all of them 6 times a year, although it's nice if you can, but prioritize your best supporters, the ones who've been with you the longest, the ones who've given the most, the ones who are the most generous and engaged, but have that two-way relationship as much as you possibly can. We're gonna close out with our top 5 tangible benefits from relationship fundraising outside of just the obvious of, we want more money. But here's why. There's 5 big things here. Number 1, continuous and reliable funding. If you've ever tried to fund your nonprofit through grants alone, you know how hard it is to get repeat grants or to make sure that we're doing the right reporting mechanism so that they give again, or increasing our gift, or we're relying on state money, we're relying on federal money. All these things are very fickle, and it's very stressful to have our income do this. But if we can build a reliable donor base and build relationships with enough people, we can have this reliable incoming revenue that we can budget for. Much, much more comfortable when we know the revenue is continuous. It only is continuous and quote unquote guaranteed if we have that two-way relationship. So building these relationships will result in a more reliable stream of funding that we can count on. Number two, much, and I mean much, larger gifts. Again, transitioning from that 10% to the 90%, you might get a 5x, a 10x, a 100x size. But if you can have a relationship with someone and they trust you as a person, and they trust the organization, and they trust the things that you're doing, the average gift size, not only to be continuous money, but the average gift size will go up. We want to focus on those larger gifts, and the people who have potential to upgrade their gift can upgrade even more if we just focus on this and end up receiving these larger on average gifts. So it's the same asks, it's the same effort, more money on the back end. Number three, referrals. If someone is super jazzed about your mission and they give to you all the time, what are they likely going to do among their peers? They're probably going to talk about it. They're probably going to talk about their involvement and how excited they are. You're going to get natural connections to new people if you have that relationship. If there's a sense of trust, of understanding, of information both ways between you and a donor and the donor and the organization, then they'll be able to find new people for you that you would have never had access to. So not only do you have more gifts, continuous gifts, and larger gifts, but your prospect base. Referrals means a larger prospect list. These are more new people that you can approach for gifts and continue to grow that base. So you have that base of support you can count on, so much per month coming in, and then you only grow from there. And even if these new referrals say, well, that's too many people, I can't maintain another 100 relationships. Well, maybe those 100 people now have relationships with the organization, or they have relationships now with your donors, and everyone can kind of help perpetuate the mission and the excitement. Success breeds success in this way, and having those referrals is absolutely key to kind of building and growing your base of support. All right, number four, we want to foster a sense of community. Give example for this. The biggest fundraising engine in the US is religion. It's because they have this immense sense of community. You go to church every Sunday, you go to synagogue, you go to mosque, and these are your people. You give, you tithe, and the giving and the socializing and the coming together every single week, it's the community piece that you're essentially paying for. You feel good about giving because it's all about this thing that we get to do together. We can foster this same sense of community with our nonprofits. Another great example is colleges. Colleges bring in so much money. They're amazing fundraisers because they have that built-in sense of community. You have that in-group behavior. You have a lot of loyalty to your institution in many cases, and they do a phenomenal job of community as well. So it's that piece we talked about in the beginning. It's not necessarily that you have to only have relationships between the donor and the organization, but the donor and the other donors, and let them kind of connect and network with each other. You can have events where they get together, thank you events. You can have cultivation where they bring in people to learn about the organization. You can have all kinds of opportunities where you bring people together so that they can have that fellowship. That fellowship is such a key part of philanthropy and giving, and we can foster that for them. And it kind of happens naturally with the relationship building piece. All right, fifth and final top benefit is feedback. We get awesome feedback if people feel like they trust us. If we have a very transactional donor base, that kind of 90% that gives away 10% of the money, and it's all kind of online, and I haven't met them in person, and they give through the mail, and it's kind of faceless giving, faceless fundraising, we call it. We can send out surveys or we can ask people, but their likelihood to give us like real qualitative, detailed feedback on what they want, how we're doing, pretty minimal. If you have an honest and open and trustworthy relationship with a donor, or they feel like they trust the organization, you're gonna get feedback all the time, whether you ask for it or not. You're gonna be able to get, hey, how do you wanna be recognized? How can we say thank you? How can we demonstrate your generosity to the community? All these things that you wanna know, you're gonna get built-in feedback if you have those existing fundraising relationships. All right, hopefully this video has convinced you that you need to get on the phone and start cultivating those relationships to tap into those big dollars and reliable revenue. If you need additional help or you have questions, you can of course comment on the video. We do read all the comments and try to respond to as many as we can. Or you can head over to our website to have a conversation with us directly. That's pridephilanthropy.com. Click that Let's Chat button and you can book a free call with one of our team members so we can learn a little bit more about your organization. Thanks so much, y'all. We'll see you in the next video.